Thanks to those who are here in the room and to those who are on Zoom. For the folks on Zoom, I cannot see the chat. So and I don't want to have it on the screen, and I'm not sure if I put it there if you can see it. So I'm just going to fly here and hope that y'all don't have any issues. But if you do, call David Burns. David Burns is sitting right in front of me, as you can probably see him on the camera. Call David or Teams him if there are technical issues with this presentation. Glad again you guys are here today. South by Southwest is a conference I've been going to for some time. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And I was glad to be able to finally go back in person this year. South by Southwest, some of you hear that who especially are from Texas, and you think, oh, that's a big music festival. And that's where it started. It started out of a series of conversations about music and media, but South by Southwest Interactive is something that emerged later, which we'll talk about more in a minute, that involves the intersection of all things creative, all things innovative, all things digital, technology, advertising, marketing, execution of business, culture, civics, education. This is a conference that reaches into every industry, and it's a global conference. This year, I haven't seen the final numbers, but I believe 40,000 people attended Interactive in some way. And so it's right in our backyard. It is in Austin. And so what a great opportunity to welcome the entire world into your backyard and to go from Baylor 90 minutes down the road and just immerse yourself in. The reason I go is to kind of get a sense of the zeitgeist. Where are things going? And so a little bit about the history of South by Interactive. Starts in '87. There are a series of conversations going on in Austin around music and media as things are emerging. And then in 1994, they launch South by Southwest Music and Media Conference. It's the first time the word interactive is used. And this is, of course, the emergence of the web. And so this is a whole different medium that is starting up. And so they start having specialized track and specialized conversation around this new medium. 2007, by then it's interactive has matured. And we have 150 panel sessions, 450 speakers just at the interactive session of South by. And so usually you have interactive, then film happen at the same time, then music comes afterwards. 2007 is also the year that Twitter is launched at South by Southwest and really announces that as far as Web 2.0 is concerned, that South by is the place you must be. And so I got there.
You got to click on it one more time. Because when you click on Zoom, oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah. I got there in 2012. So these are all my badges from over the years. So 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then COVID. So canceled in COVID. And then 2021 was online. And that was a lot of fun because you could watch all the content you want without any physical restrictions, which meant I was basically awake for about 5 days. But in 2022, I didn't have any confidence that it was going to be a full interactive festival, so I just chose not to go. And I went this year. Paid for it in 2020, used that registration in 2023. So very, very kindly did it. Oh, went too far. This was this year's South by Interactive. What do we do at South? What's the conference about? These are all the different tracks at South by Interactive for this year. And I put arrows by the ones that I was engaging with. And so there are 13 different tracks that I attended sessions in. The conference is established by the participants. You submit panels, and those panels get picked and escalated up through a voting process and become part of the conference. But my areas are, of course, media industry, civic engagement design, culture, markets and economies, advertising, branding, very interested in kind of future things. So the 2050 track is kind of futuristic. And of course, he's kind of go to the Creative Industries Expo. It's where all the vendors go. It's at every conference. It's where the most academic conferences where the book people are. This is where everybody is. We'll share a lot from that. And of course, the art program. I did not go to softball and barbecue. So I was not there for that this year. Yes. But it is every hour, there are probably about 75 or 80 sessions. Not in, well, across these tracks, there's probably about 30 sessions. So you really have to pick and choose and decide what you're going to do. So pretty much when I go to South by, I get up, I'm there by 8. First session started about 8:39, and I go nonstop without eating until about 7. And then I find somewhere and crash. So it's a lot to drink in, but it's worth it. Every year since about 2013, I've written these annual thematic summaries. And I will admit that in 2012 and 2013, South by Southwest Interactive was like a big, massive celebration of all the incredible things we're doing with social technologies and Web 2.0, and how excited we are about disrupting the film industry and the music industry and toppling worlds, toppling the past and creating a new future. And then in 2014, things started to change. Actually, if you go to my blog, carlflynn.net, and look at the 2014 post, it says, "The party is over." It was my first sort of post, because that was very much the signal we were getting, was that we maybe went too far with all this disruption business, and now people are really mad. I do think that one of the reasons why we're experiencing some of the things we're experiencing in 2023 is because of the way that technologists and advertisers and branders and marketers and all of us handled Web 2.0 and just crammed it in everybody's face and just did it. And so we're experiencing kind of a backlash still. So my thematic summary from this year is surprisingly not very optimistic. This is South by Southwest Interactive is a place of possibility of the future. And yet still I'm down there and there's a reticence, this feeling. And so this is my kind of summary statement of what I felt and experienced from South by this year. And these are going to become the themes of our talk. In an unstable world on the cusp of another major technological disruption, we need to act wisely and collectively with an emphasis on our humanity, so that as many as possible may benefit from the next iteration of the global economy. So if I had to summarize what I heard and felt and saw in 5 days in Austin, this is what I heard and felt and saw. And so let's talk about each of these themes that come out of this summary statement. Oh, before I get ahead, I am going to go for about 45 minutes and then have questions and answers afterwards. And if those are Zoom, just on Zoom, just throw your questions in the chat and we'll get to them. I think David's on now, so he's kind of monitoring. So thank you, David Burns. So in an unstable world, it should be no surprise to anybody in this room or on Zoom that we live in unstable and uncertain times. And I used the word reticence earlier, and that reticence was felt all throughout South by. Now, of course, with so many startups and technology companies there, this was a problem. On Friday, the first day of the conference in the afternoon, Silicon Valley Bank goes under. Several companies who had big installations there had billions of dollars in that bank. And there was some fear on Friday night, Saturday morning that some things in South by were going to go away because of the need. Now, thankfully, the federal government stepped in and said, don't worry about this, we'll take care of this. And so South by was cautiously optimistic, but there were a lot of people on their phones and wondering if they were going to get paid or be able to pay their people this week. So if we needed another sign at South by 2023 that there was an unstable world, we got the signal day one. things are not stable. But the theme continued. This was one of the exhibits that was on display. Lush Cosmetics worked with the I want to get this right, so I'm going to pull my notes. Worked with the Zen Education Project and the African American Policy Forum to put this exhibit up right in the middle of South by about book banning in the US. And so all those are books wrapped with different facts about book banning in the US, historical and present time. The table over here, I got a pointer, has a timeline of book banning on top of it. It's a really well done exhibit. And I got to talk to a couple of the librarians who are helping to run it. But this is a sign of the instability of the world. We live in a time when information is actively being silenced. Books are being banned. This is video from Edelman is a PR firm. And for the last 20 years, Edelman has been doing a trust index, the Edelman Trust Index. And this is their setup. There's a little activation. You could move the blocks around, and the blocks were different findings of this year's survey. And the wall has these on it. The little greeting cards that you can send to someone and they can plant it and grow whatever is implanted in this paper. I asked them if it was an invasive species and they said they didn't know.
Disruption indeed.
Disruption indeed. But the Edelman Trust Barometer, this was their summary statement on the 2023 Edelman Trust Barometer. To say that global trust has been low in the last 5-7 years is an understatement. But this is their statement, their summary statement from this year. So social fabric weakens amid deepening divisions. This is looking at business, government, NGOs, and media. And this is a global survey about people's trust in these different institutions that kind of hold the world together. And so a lack of faith in social institutions triggered by economic anxiety, disinformation, mass class divide, and a failure of leadership has brought us to where we are today, deeply and dangerously polarized. One interesting note that you'll see in our third theme, is that business is the only institution seen as competent and ethical. The business sector is the only area that's seen as competent and ethical. And so deep divisions, and CEOs are, it says, obligated to improve economic optimism. The world is looking to business leaders to basically carry things forward. So you look at the world and you wonder why governments are nationalizing. It's because they can't stand up against Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple. They're a bigger economy. Apple's a bigger economy than many countries. And so the only way to stand up against them is to renationalize. People love Apple more than they do their countries in many cases. And so, unstable world. One consistent presentation is done by, since 2011, is done by Rohit Bhargava. He's very funny, but he's started this non-obvious trends book. It's a futuristic book, started in 2011, and he published all the way through 2019. But COVID stopped him from publishing. But he says in his session, he said after 2020, it's been very difficult to discern the normal and to discern any sort of future normal. Like all the indicators that he would use, he reads a lot of media throughout the year, and he uses Post-it notes, and he finds themes in the media. And then over the year, he aggregates the Post-it notes into major themes, and then writes the book out of what he sees and tries to use it as a diagnostic for looking at the future. And so he said there's an epidemic he's picking up of future pessimism. People cannot see a hope for the future right now in his research. You can look on non-obvious trends. You can Google that, and you can see his top 10 trends for the mega trends that are in this book. But one of them is flux commerce, just to give an example, but it's not a positive thing. He says the lines between industries erode, leading to a continual disruption of business models, distribution channels, and consumer expectations. So all the trends that are supposed to be like future, optimistic, hopeful, they're all grounded, and they are, but they're all grounded in kind of the disruption of the entire cosmos that we're experiencing. Another person who I always go to her session, Amy Webb, is a business professor at NYU, and she's also runs an institute called the Future Today Institute. She's a futurist. She and her team aggregate data from across tons of sectors to, she calls those signals, to pick up signals that she aggregates into patterns, but then she uses those patterns to kind of make guesses at the future. And this is what she had to say as part of her talk at South by.
Right now. Disorder, a whole bunch of noise. And that's because the signals post-COVID have been mixing in a way that I just have never seen before. And these conditions can be destabilizing to countries, to companies, and to us as we are trying to think about what's next.
And so that was the lowest point of the talk. It gets better. But what she's seeing is somebody who analyzes future trends and looks at a lot of data and talks to a lot of business and government leaders and people in media industry. Here's what she and her team is picking up. So the first context of what I experienced down there is that everybody is feeling the instability of the world right now, and don't have a lot of as we look forward, there's a lot of optimism, but concerned optimism. Again, reticence is the right tone. On the cusp of another major technological disruption. It should be no surprise to anybody in this room, Josh, Ben, and Millie being the first two, of what that technological disruption is. So I'll let them guess. What is the major technological disruption that's already happening?
AI.
Generative AI. So the main theme in technology and in culture and social, all these and across industries, across groupings, was the emergence of generative AI, Web 3.0, whatever that yet means, and the metaverse, again, whatever yet that means. People were making allusions back to Second Life as kind of an early version of that, but now, of course, they're claiming it's gone much, much further. But those are the three buzzwords: AI, generative AI, assistive AI, generative AI, Web 3.0. Web 2.0 was the social web. Web 3.0 is the automated, connected future. We use web because that's the only language we have. And then, of course, the metaverse. Not an accident that Zuckerberg renamed his company Meta. He wanted to be first to the metaverse party, and he's building a lot of it with Facebook. So, yeah, ChatGPT 4 launched during South by. This is you guys, some of you know more about this than I do, but a large language model, AI, and in its first iteration, when it was released 3.0, people got out and played. 4.0 is a huge step forward. One of the key things they kept coming back to is train to decline inappropriate requests. But yet the warning is may occasionally produce harmful instructions or biased content. So there was a lot of content about ChatGPT, its application, implications, and trying to figure out how to get some guardrails around it early on. Microsoft, as you know, invested $10 billion in ChatGPT. And what's good about Microsoft is they waited. They didn't start importing it into their products right away. They're waiting to fully understand how it's going to, no, I'm kidding. No, they put it immediately into Bing, like day 3. Hey, ChatGPT is available in Bing. go get it. So I got into the beta and started playing with Bing. I had downloaded Bing on my Mac. Okay, I downloaded Microsoft Edge on my Mac. This is how you know the world is shifting. And so ChatGPT is plugged right into Bing. You've probably heard that Microsoft 365 is introducing a feature called Copilot. Clippy on steroids, or whatever we want to call it, but is going to be an AI engine in throughout Microsoft 365 on their website, which I clipped this from. There's this, I don't even know if this might be vaporware. I have no idea what this is. Draft a proposal from yesterday's Microsoft Notes meeting notes. And then the AI would create that for you. Imagine a future where I get Elizabeth Rivera emails me and my Copilot reads the email, knows my count. She's asking if we can meet next week. Copilot goes out and says, oh, she's just asking about calendar information. Carl's available these days. Copilot just drafts a response. I hit say yes and hit send, and I don't have to write that email. Maybe in another future, if it's just a calendar request, I have an option that says the calendar request, just respond. And the AI reads my calendar, responds. So Copilot, nobody knows really what it is, but it's ChatGPT infused right into your productivity environment. Bard, being pushed by GPT, Google has released their AI, and they have already said yesterday, as I'm doing this presentation, that they're going to build it right into Google Chrome because Bing is ahead. So Bard is coming through. I find Bard to be about as interesting. I mean, ChatGPT and Bard are kind of in the same spot as far as what you can give it and what it returns. So Bard is out. Shutterstock. So Isabel's here. Isabel and I use Shutterstock, not for all of our art, but sometimes we're on a tight timeline and we need some stock art. I did not notice in February that a new button appeared on our dashboard called Generate. So I can go in here on Shutterstock and type what I want. A man drawn in a cubist style standing next to a church building. And it will render for me a cubist rendering of a man standing next to a church building. In preparation for the session, because I was going to try to switch off and show you one, but I don't want to, because our Zoom folks wouldn't be able to see it. I said, country church in a wheat field. And it rendered several photos of a country church in wheat field. Original photography, you couldn't tell it was original. It wasn't, I didn't go in a field and shoot it. It's that good. You saw on social media this past week, a couple weeks ago now, the Pope in a puffy jacket. That was done by an AI. He did not actually wear that jacket. So, image AI. How about video AI? Text to video. This is Designs AI, but on the showroom floor there at South by, there was another company called Rizzle. Text to video. So I tried this. I gave my video a title, and I just made up a script about a skincare company. And I made the script of the commercial, just made up stuff off the top of my head. Within 10 seconds, it generated a 30-second commercial for my skincare product. And the clips were correct. I had talked about, with only 5 applications, you can get this amazing, and it shows a video of a woman doing this in a mirror. Order your free sample today. Shipping line with a box that says free sample on it. I mean, the audio overlay was bad because I didn't want to pay for the premium voices. But imagine if I could just type in what I want, get the video, maybe do some small editing, and I'm done. This is Greg Bachman. He is the founder and CEO of OpenAI. He was at South by. This is one of the reasons I'd love to go to South by. You never know who's going to show up, and I got to sit in a room with him. Did I get to talk to him? No, but I did get in the room with him. And he was there to, as a marketing guy, I have a marketing sensibility. I can feel things. He was there to do a PR job, not in a bad way. But he was there to kind of quell the fear about ChatGPT and what its real capabilities are. He set the horizon for what it is and what it does. Basically, it's a very good predictive engine that can guess with high accuracy what the next word might be. That's all it's doing when you type a prompt into ChatGPT. It's just putting the next best word on the screen, and it's just really good at guessing what the right word will be. It's also why it makes terrible mistakes. In an early example of ChatGPT, I asked it to write a press release about David Burns at Baylor University. And you might think from this session that I have some crazy obsession with David, but I don't. We've just been friends for a long time. But I happened to, I wrote that in there, and it gave a press release that I could have submitted to the New York Times and they would have published it, but it was wrong. It talked about how he had been a professor at Baylor and was involved in suspicions of what was it? Sexual assault suspicions, and he was released from the university. Never happened. But you would know it from reading the very good diction of ChatGPT. And so, but he was here to say, hey, this is not perfect. And his real message was, I need an ethics board. I need an ethics board to get around this, to help me make decisions, because that's a big question that came out of this conference. Who makes the decisions about what the guardrails look like around AI? Who gets to babysit the AI? So, Greg Brockman. Literally don't know what's coming on the screen next. Oh, John Maeda from Microsoft. He spoke, and again, it was a session. He was there to talk about design thinking and AI. He is the vice president for AI at Microsoft. And he gave a great talk about kind of normalizing this, what we've just experienced with generative and assistive AI blowing up like it has. He's like, look, it's Moore's law. There's nothing new here. It's just he used the analogy of a pond with lily pads coming across it, and the lily pads they double every day. And so his point is on if day 15 was 2019, well, the next day that pond is going to be full. And so we're just at day 30. He said it just happened that fast. It's the way technology has grown and moved. So he was there to kind of normalize generative AI and assistive AI and talk about some creative ways it could be deployed. He did not talk a lot about what Microsoft is doing. He was just kind of talking generally. Of course, then this headline appeared several days later. Microsoft lays off team that taught employees how to make AI tools responsibly. Microsoft laid off 10,000 employees, and it was the AI ethics team in part that was canned. So he did not talk about guardrails. And then he apparently got rid of the guardrails, or somebody at Microsoft did. This is March 13th, right after conference. So Amy Webb, who we heard earlier, was talking about a possible responsible future in the next 5 years for as AI, assistive and generative AI gets out there. And he says, we have a moment, she said, we have a moment to be responsible. We have a moment to do all these things, to talk about it, to not race out. And she says, I'm only 20% optimistic that's what's going to happen. 80% is that companies are going to monetize this quickly. They're going to roll it out there and push it and go with it. And then we're going to have to clean it up later, which appears that's what we're doing. So this is a major AI. We can look at it and say, no, this is not a big deal. This is a disruptive technology. And it's not disruptive in the same way as Web 2. Web 2 disrupted a lot of what we would call blue-collar jobs. Assistive AI and generative AI is disruptive for knowledge workers. If your job, as it was said at the conference, is writing stock bits of text every day, well, that job is going to go away. If you're, and especially in the academy, This raises, and I'm glad that Baylor, the Academy for Teaching and Learning, is doing sessions on using AI and not running away from it. It is a challenge to what we do and how we do what we do. In libraries, it is a challenge. Web 2 was a challenge. Web 3 is a whole nother ballgame. And how do we use and leverage this technology and help our students and help our faculty learn how to leverage and use this technology productively? From an IT perspective, since that's part of my world as well, compute power. Our faculty are going to start asking for compute power to build LLMs, to build AIs. Where, obviously the cloud is available to us, but that's expensive. What are we going to do from an IT perspective to get prepared for what in 5 years will probably be a fairly normative culture of AI? So this is a major disruption. And there at the conference, the technologists, the futurists, everybody was not unaware that it was a major disruption. The question is, will we slow down and take a look at it and then move, or will we just move? The feeling is we're just moving because that's kind of our economic model. So a caution, this is that caution that came out of the conference. We need to act wisely and collectively. So we saw this, I think we all saw this, right? A letter signed on by Elon Musk and several other technology leaders saying, hey, let's take a 6-month pause on AI development and talk about it. Nobody is paying attention to this. It was news for about a day and nobody's doing it. Bard is moving forward. Google's moving forward with Bard, moving it right into its search. It's moving forward, but at least you hear people thinking about it. This is another slide from Amy's presentation. She had 300 slides, by the way, in an hour. It was impressive. I don't have 300 slides, but she's concerned that as AI comes, like with the web, I'm sure we saw the congressional hearings the other day when TikTok was being interrogated, and all the very hilarious videos that came out of clearly Congress people don't know how the internet works still and how these technologies operate. Her concern is that regulators, governments across the globe will be very slow. They want to understand what's coming, and when it's going to be time to regulate, they won't, the genie will be way out of the bottle. And at that point, what can you do? There was one session I went to, it's kind of about politics, but it was some surveys that this company called Rethink had done. And this was a session also with Dan Lubetsky. He was the founder of Kind Snacks, the Kind bars. He's the founder, but he's also started this organization called Starts With Us about political engagement, because he and Freethink have been their studies seen that 78% in the US population kind of agree on a lot of things. And his thinking is, let's harness the 78% to deal with a lot of the issues that we're facing in the US and in the world. So there is some common ground that we can use to maybe act wisely and collectively as we face this disruption. Don't know what's next. Oh, this is Amy again.
Exactly, like I'm about to share it with you, that given what I'm seeing today, these scenarios are plausible.
So this is Amy Webb again, and she's talking about the positive, an optimistic future as we live with AI. And that was 15 years out, but this is the optimistic side. And so it's a little longer clip. Listen to it.
We slowed down. We built the next generation of assistive tools to maximally benefit society. We invested in education. We invested in upskilling. We imagined jobs of the future and worked backwards to the present. These new tools positively transformed the global workforce, not just mature economies, but everybody, and in particular, medicine. In 2038, healing is personal. the industrial metaverse, doctors are performing surgery that's hyper-personalized for the patient's specific biology. That guesswork is now gone. Brick and mortar hospitals have been replaced by local surgical hubs, which means that people in remote areas still have access to very high quality care. Doctors are using the tools of the industrial metaverse, the medical metaverse, combination of extended reality, digital twins, robotics, as well as generative AI tools to ensure the best possible patient outcomes. So when it's time for recovery, patients get moved into a by the patient experience designer, which is like a user experience designer, but in a healthcare. They're responsible for using assistive computing tools to create an optimal experience. So generative AI creates recipes for individual patients, soups with restorative properties that are low sodium, taste great. The assistive tools optimally adjust the bed temperature, warmer and cooler, in order to reduce inflammation. Computational pharmacists use generative AI to develop and print therapeutics on site to aid in faster healing. Because assistive tools are now evenly distributed, this isn't fancy healthcare for wealthy people, it's just healthcare.
So just one example of thinking about 15 years out and how positively, optimistically, how this plays out. But as we talked about, she and others aren't too optimistic we're going to do that. Now, this is where we would take that marketing, advertising, branding turn with an emphasis on our humanities so that many as possible may benefit. So one of the people that they had in attendance was Josh DeMauro. He's the vice president for Disney of Parks, Resorts, and Cruises. And from a marketing, branding, advertising perspective, Disney is the master brand storyteller. It's like Apple. They're just one of the brands, Nike. They just do it right. If you want to model, just follow them. I grew up in LA, went to going to Disneyland. I've always said they own the horizon. You're in Anaheim, California, in the middle of a city, and you don't feel like you're anywhere but where you're in Disneyland. It's a magical place, and it is. Their goal is happiness. How can we inspire happiness? They create moments of happiness through the Disney experience of food, music, visual effects, characters, and cast, and they're constantly innovating. They're trying to create a humanizing, happy experience. And so one of the greatest moments of South by Southwest was this moment. And scene.
And we've got these dreamers at Disney. It's a very, very special team of people. They blend creative imagination with technical expertise, and they do it with a whole lot of curiosity. Collectively, these folks are known as our Imagineers. Now, Imagineering was started by Walt in the early 1950s to build his original dream for Disneyland. And they've been making our world a magical place for the past 70 years. These are artists and they're architects and they're engineers and they're producers. Some of them are model makers, they're mathematicians, they're master planners, they're writers, and they are so much more than that. But what they all have in common is they are all innovators, just like so many of the people in the room today. These Imagineers, they make broomsticks walk, they can make cars talk, they can make Spider-Man fly, and they can dream up. Thank you, Bobby. They dream up things like this.
So a positive example of using technology, kind of the future-looking things, not AI in this case, to inspire happiness. The room went crazy. I've been in a couple of environments when things happened and it inspires people so much, it stirs them up so much they run around. That happened when he fired that thing up. People ran around the room. It was crazy. Adults ran around the room. And so Disney is working with these emergent technologies to create a brand experience. This is the second one that they demonstrated.
Got it. I want to introduce you to my friend Tinkerbell. What?
This is not a video.
That thing you told me to go right in there.
I did.
Well, it's good to see you, Tinkerbell. I think they're here to see you. No, certainly not for, they're not here to see me.
Oh,
So she is somehow 3D projected into a lantern. I don't know how they did it. They didn't tell us how they did it. But again, applying technology to create this moment of engagement and happiness. Going back to AI and what brands are doing with AI. Glossy Magazine did this article on the 28th about how companies are already using AI tools to help you shop, to help you create and design a hyper-personalized product. This is going to be the theme of this slide is hyper-personalization. That's where we're going, and AI enables that. This was holographics were a thing that everybody was doing at South by 2023. You can't, these are terrible pictures because you can't, the way that these holographic images are generated is by spinning LED light bars. But this is over here, in this corner, not worrying. This is a live holographic representation of whoever is standing in front of the green screen. She is actually standing in front of the green screen, turn and taking a picture of herself, holographically rendered. But this one was about, you can tell by scale, this one was about 20 feet tall. And so several people were working with holograms as, how do we get more personal? How do you get more, like if I want to, let's have a call with Joseph. Let's say, Teams is not enough, a 2D flat Joseph image. I want a 3D Joseph that I want to talk to, so he can holographically project live in my space. And in the current technology, I get a nice breeze. But anyways, those things spin fast. So holographics. This is a technology nobody needs, but I thought it was interesting. This is a company that was launching their WeHead product that is basically a bunch of phone screens aggregated around. And basically, if you're on a Zoom call with somebody, it captures their face, and if they move their head, this thing moves. So you get like natural head movements as you're interacting. Again, I don't see this product going anywhere, but it's trying to humanize, personalize the virtual experience. Johnson & Johnson had a activation there. This is a robot that does knee surgeries, but it does it like Amy Webb in her video talked about a personalized knee surgery. It works off an MRI of a scan of your knee. And so it knows how to operate on your knee, not a knee in general, your knee. And they were also demonstrating a VR experience where doctors are now being trained to do surgeries using VR. And so they're in the goggles and they have the handles, and there were people doing, learning to do surgeries step by step using VR. This is a session I went to about using sociology to understand your customers better. We've always done this, but I wanted you to see the titles of these people's jobs. Design anthropologist, design sociologist, like Amy Webb in her thing. She talked about a cognitive pharmacologist. Is that what she said? A computational pharmacologist. Like, what are these names? These jobs already exist, but how to hyper-personalized brand experience. Delta has built free Wi-Fi into all their planes now, so that they can deliver start to deliver AI-based experiences to you. So when you come, if you're in their program, you come and sit in your seat, and it personalizes the whole flight experiences for you from a digital perspective, but maybe also they know your flight preferences. And this is coach, not just first class. And so they want data. They want your data so they can personalize your experience. This is a sit down with Katie Couric. Again, people you only see at South by, and the CEO of Patagonia. Patagonia is a company that's near to my heart because they're in my hometown. And they recently decided, or the owner decided, to give all future profits to environmental initiatives. still working on great product, still taking care of their team, but all profits go to protect the environment and the future of the environment. Again, going back to that theme from the Edelman survey about business taking on social causes. So what you're going to hear a lot of out of branding and advertising in the next a year is a lot about hyper-personalizing the experience for you in very unique ways. Next 5 years using AI tools to take your data and feed it back to you in ways that try to cater to your experience across all platforms. That's what's coming. I had a friend yesterday that I was eating dinner with our pastor last night, and he showed me a GPT message that his friend said, "Hi, I'm Sean Palmer. It's good to meet you." And ChatGPT introduced itself and then said, "I really enjoyed your book." And it was Sean Palmer's book, and summarized it, and also your other book, and then summarized it. It's good to meet you. So ChatGPT now can understand you if it gets the right you. And you know, again, it's pretend, right? Remember the story, you've heard the story about the ChatGPT session where it was trying to get the guy to leave his wife. You know, it doesn't know what it's doing. But if you push it a certain way, it will give you feedback of what you kind of want. So manufacturers, product designers, experience designers across the board, marketing, advertising, it's all going this way in the next year. Last statement, because we're out of time, for the next iteration of the global economy. This is just to say, this is the floor of the Creative Industries Expo. Half of it is companies not in the US. Half of it is innovations, tools, investment companies from around the globe. 30%, we had a 33% international attendance this year at South by Interactive, and many of that number is from Brazil. I kept meeting people, and I just started saying, "You're from Brazil," and I was right most of the time. Doing all these things that we talked about in this thematic statement is for the next iteration of the global economy. All this stuff really works well if we all do it together, and so that's the hope. But again, going back to that caveat, in a world that seems to be fragmenting. But there's a lot to be gained if we do this work together. If you want to see more, how many clicks, Joseph? There it is. 5 was the answer. You can go to southbysouthwest.com, and they have a lot of their content that they're willing, that they share some of it, not all of it. And if you go to their YouTube channel, you can see a lot of this content. That they put a lot of content out there. So if you want to hear more, see more of these sessions, some of them are available. Again, this conference helps me to look forward, to anticipate the future. So I'm not using marketing and advertising tactics, PR tactics that are old. I'm looking at the new, and I'm looking at the world that's coming, not the world that is or that was. So your questions, I left 10 minutes. I was only 5 minutes over. So David, do we have any questions on the Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay. So any questions?
Question. So if the future look at the way that like generative AI, Web 3.0, metaverse, and all that stuff is hyper individualized, and yet they're worried about us being sort of community focused and having humanity, how are these futurists envisioning a hyper individualized, community engaged technology? Particularly as we're like
in 2 different
Yeah.
particularly, I mean, and I'm thinking like we've been talking about XR and VR and things like that, but it's like we're a library. We're literally a community space.
Right.
So if the technology is trending to individual experience, how, like what, if the trend is just hyper individualization and we need to be like aware of communities, that's one thing, but like what kind of community-focused engagement in this hyper-individualized
Yeah,
experience.
and I think hyper-personalized and hyper-individualized are different.
Uh-huh.
So, and especially with a look toward, as my statement says, toward to trying to not let the technology run over your humanity, but assist you.
Mhm.
So I think libraries play a key role in that.
Mhm.
It's like, how can we harness these technologies and assist research, assist learning, assist creativity? So I think that's where the space we play in. There's another, so a couple of these activations have been done. Of course, everybody knows a few years ago that the first VR concert was held in, was that in the Overwatch? Or no, that was in, what's that game platform?
Yeah.
Not Minecraft.
Fortnite.
Fortnite had the first VR concert. I tried to go and I didn't go to the right place. There's already kind of some moves there for, how do we engage collectively and communally in these spaces when we're not shooting each other. We go to the concert together in the VR space. Nike has worked with Minecraft to create a Nike world in Minecraft. That's apparently, I haven't been to it, but apparently it's really cool. So there's brands getting involved in metaverse and creating worlds and then inviting you into that world as your avatar to be and to engage with them. Not just for product, it's more just play right now. But of course, if you have a great experience in Nike Minecraft land, you might want to go buy some Nike shoes. But so this is the way I see it playing out. So your avatar is your hyper individualized self. And then you come into these collective spaces and participate in almost an augmented humanized sort of way. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So I think there's room for both there.
Yeah, and hyper-personalization. I mean, I'm thinking about, the medical industry. That seems just at first glance like that's a no-brainer benefit.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, because targeted, individual, personalized healthcare can help you live a longer life, a healthier life, a better life. But is hyper-personalization always? Does it always have that same positive outcome, right? Or are there some elements where some areas, I mean, like, what does it mean in education?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean in customer service, right? I mean, these industries that are hyper-personalizing customer service, I don't know.
Well, one of the questions, and I was meant to say this during the presentation, was the balance between hyper-personalization and privacy.
Right.
And that is a concern that brands are thinking about. They want you to give them your data. So you may be approached by brands in the next year or two to say, Josh, we would love that you're a brand advocate for us. We want to know more about you. Hey, 15% off your next purchase. Complete this brief survey so we can continue to cater to you with our products. And we already know Amazon does this to us, right? But I go in and I search for the other day, I bought some pens. And so now every page I visit, and even on my social, I get ads for pens. It's already happening, but that's dumb. It's not smart AI. That's just cookies, right? This is where it can get really hyper-personalized, smart. Where you say, hey, we know Elizabeth or Isabel really loves this. Matter of fact, she's been searching for it a lot lately. And so why can't we as a brand come back and then give them at least possibilities of what they really want? Scary, or even send you a picture of yourself wearing their clothes. Hey, you could look like this, and the model is you. That's where I think we cross a line, right? Did we cross the line there? But it's that hyper-personalization
issue where someone had done that, where they had sent a picture of their child and saying this person's in trouble.
Oh, it's kind of a deep fakes kind of thing. Yeah. Well, this becomes the problem, right? So what is reality? Let's establish that. But the hyper-personalization and the benefits of that that companies want to bring to you, that healthcare wants to bring to you. But then the privacy of that data and the information, the protection, and you feeling like you have agency over your own information. So it'll be balancing those two concerns that I think will be the point of navigation for companies. For libraries, we have the ability to do like, wow, we have the tools already. We already know what our library is, like what we have, and it's all digitized. It's all data. So there are a lot of hyper-personalization tools. I wonder if we're going to see come out in LIS systems about where David can just put in, you know, David already knows David's syllabus for the semester, and it's already pulled the resources for you digitally for that paper that's assignment 4. I mean, that's not a technical impossibility already. We could do that. But what if, and this is one of my big fear things from LIS, what if Elsevier, God bless them, decided to take all of the articles that they have access to and books and put them in a LLM? And then they put an AI on it. And then that's what they start selling. So you no longer get, I'm interested in something on this topic, and you get a list of articles. You get the book. That is a curated AI written book on that subject that never existed before because nobody asked the prompt. Who owns licenses, however they do it, all that information? The publishing companies. So I imagine, I mean, that's like, given what I've heard, that's like a no-brainer move. I would be shocked if they're not working on that today, because that is an incredible move. But then do I need a professor of theology anymore? If I can just ask the AI, I need people writing, but I need people putting in information until I don't need anymore. But then once I don't need anymore, I can just generate it out of the data. So that's one of those big existential questions for somebody who was once going to be a professor of theology. So, so yeah, lots to think about, lots to get our hands around. If we're not, one of the things I didn't say, for hopefully not everybody's off Zoom yet, there's a chat.
I need to hop off. Great job, Carl.
Oh, okay. But if we aren't playing in this space already, we need to be playing this space. IT people, librarians, everybody, we need to be playing. We need to be engaging. We need to be learning. We need to be seeing how this can be helpful to us. So our time is up. If you want to stay and chat, I'll be here. But thank you guys, and bless y'all.